and I have the great privilege of being the council member of the 12th District. I know when I was elected to make decisions big and small, but that all of those decisions should have the focus of making this community, my district, a better place in which to live. Just want to thank you for coming here today and being a part of tonight's seminar or webinar. And just want to go into a brief presentation about what is being proposed in the Chatsworth area. So, homelessness is an issue that touches every corner of our city. But I also know that it's not just a housing issue because we built more housing this past year than any other previous year. If it was just a matter of building more housing, then we would have seen an improvement in the crisis this past year, but we haven't. In fact, those numbers have grown. We need better prevention programs, and we need to work together with the state and federal government to change policies that have actually made homelessness worse in California. We need more programs and funding for mental illness and substance abuse. We need more interventions for youth that are transitioning out of the foster care system. And we need to better understand why more seniors are becoming homeless in our city. We need to do all of these things. Today, I want to share a proposal for the city to purchase the Travelodge in Chatsworth to become a Project Homekey site and provide interim and eventually permanent supportive housing for our communities unhoused. During this presentation, I will provide some background on the current state of our homelessness crisis and share information about what is being proposed for the site. We also have joining us Meg Barkley, the city's first homeless coordinator, who is responsible for coordinating the implementation of the city's homelessness strategy. And Meg will be sharing more details about Project Homekey. I have received, over the last couple of days since I've announced this project, I've received countless emails from community members. And after this presentation, I will respond to the most frequently asked questions and concerns voiced by all of you. So first, what we have before us is our city's homeless data. According to LASA, homelessness in the city of Los Angeles has increased by 16% in the last year to over 41,000 people today. This number is obviously unacceptably high, as was last year's number and the year before that. In just the last 5 years, homelessness has nearly doubled. Even though our homeless services system is helping more people than ever, if we don't address the actual pipeline into homelessness and address the reasons why people are becoming homeless, we will never get our arms around this issue. So let me explain the graph that you see in front of you. The dark blue line shows a total number of individuals experiencing homelessness. The middle line shows a total number of individuals experiencing homelessness who are unsheltered. And the bottom line shows total sheltered in the city. And as you can see, the increase between 2019 and 2020. Okay, let's bring it back to what's happening in our community. We have unhoused residents, and though we have one of the smallest number of unhoused, number of encampments, our numbers have greatly increased over the past years. And I think we all see this crisis growing every single day. Our current situation is that the city is engaged in a lawsuit brought against it by the LA Alliance for Human Rights over the city's failure to address the homelessness crisis that is being overseen by U.S. District Court Judge David O. Carter. There have been months of negotiations, but this is where we are actually at today. So this past June, we reached a new agreement by the city under the direction of the court by a mediator appointed by Judge Carter. So the timeline extended this and more beds were required. So currently we are at 6,000 beds that we have to build within 10 months. So we're talking April 2021 that has been ordered by the courts, and 700 additional ones within 18 months. it is obviously not ideal to have a federal judge come into our community and tell us what's best for our neighborhood. Projects right now, as I explained just a second ago, with a short timeline are being expedited to meet this agreement. And I want to make sure that I do everything that I can to make sure our community is part of the conversation on any project and has input into what is finally approved. There are obviously many misperceptions about our unhoused residents and why they are homeless. There are many reasons that people end up on the streets: cost of housing, economic factors, mental illness, substance abuse, domestic violence, exiting foster care, lack of family ties and support network. As we pursue different remedies to these problems, we need to make sure that they address both short-term and long-term issues our unhoused face. But we also need to do more around prevention and keep people from falling into homelessness in the first place. I'm hoping that you've heard about some of the different programs. I need your help in helping me get the word out. But since probably December of last year, we have had several programs because I've always believed that we need to have a focus on prevention. So we have a CD12 Angel Fund, no tax dollars, just privately raised funds to provide to people who are in emergency, that need emergency financial assistance. We have our Small Business Relief Fund. If you are a small business in our community, we are providing zero interest, $5,000 to $25,000 loans to help you keep your doors open, because I want to make sure that after this COVID passes us, that we get our economy up and running as soon as possible. And I just introduced a motion that allocated $100,000 to provide rental assistance to low-income residents in CD12 who are impacted by COVID-19. The pandemic obviously has made this homelessness crisis worse. One of our responses to COVID was the Project Homekey, which I'm sure you heard was the city leasing hotel and motel rooms to get the most vulnerable unhoused off the streets. We actually saw an increased rate of individuals accepting services under this program because of the option to go indoors, but not in a congregate setting. Project Homekey, what we are talking about today, is sort of the next phase in the state's response to protecting our unhoused and comply with the court's agreement. The city is receiving $600 million in grant funding to purchase and rehabilitate housing, including hotels, motels, vacant apartment buildings, and other buildings, and convert them into interim or permanent long-term housing for the unhoused. Let me just give you a little background about the Travelodge. We've seen many industries obviously hit hard by the economic crisis caused by COVID-19. One of the hardest hit has been the industries, it's the actual hotel industry. So due to low occupancy rates, many hotels and motels across the city are shutting down or being listed for sale. The Travelodge in Chatsworth is actually one of those properties. So if you don't know where the Travelodge is, it's bounded by Devonshire on the south, Blackhawk Street on the north, Owens Mouth to the west, and the railroad tracks to the east. There are 74 rooms currently, lots of ample parking, and the parcel is about 33,000 square feet. So let me go about who would be housed in this facility if it became a Project Homekey. So this is, under Project Homekey, local residents will actually be prioritized. So if they're living on the streets in our community, those are the first people LAHSA will be focusing their outreach on to make sure that at all the encampments in CD12, to give them the first opportunities to be to go indoors at this Travelodge. When I get calls, there are, I guess we get more homeless calls than any other calls in this office about the crisis that we are going through. And, in our response to it, we have seen true truth. It is true, a lot of times it's very frustrating when we go out and we work with these people and try to get them services just to have them refuse them. But another truth is that we just don't have any available beds to bring people into. This is not going to be a walk-up shelter. Only individuals who are referred can stay here. The plan is for this site to function as interim housing and then be converted to permanent housing. As interim housing, occupants are able to stay there at like 90 days at a time. There will be supportive services and programs on site, and we'll have on-site staff and security 24/7. This kind of change, if this program comes to the Travelodge in Chatsworth, I know will be hard for many of us, because change is hard for all of us. But our homeless crisis, just isn't getting any better, and we need concrete solutions to bring our unhoused off of our sidewalks and indoors. When I first heard that the Travelodge was available as a potential Homekey site and being up for sale, my first concern was that if this city was not able to acquire this location due to its proximity to transit, I mean, it's right across the street from the Orange Line. Current land use laws passed in Sacramento would enable this site to be developed by a private developer into a project with several hundred units. Now, earlier I said that the current use of the Travelodge has 72 units with no plans on any type of expansion. So, we could see a project that is housing 300 to 400 units with minimal parking, increased height, and a project that this community and I would have absolutely no say over. This Homekey proposal is a good opportunity to take control of the site and maintain it as a low-density housing project instead of a high-rise housing project adjacent to single-family residents. A high-rise project would not be, obviously keeping in the character of our community. I don't, need to tell anybody this about the homelessness crisis growing in our neighborhoods and in our communities. It's not an invisible crisis, but what we've allowed to occur on our streets in the name of individual rights and liberty is not compassionate for our unhoused or beneficial to the public at large. I have always said that we are not going to be able to just build our way out of this crisis, but we have to understand that we cannot have it both ways. We cannot lament the condition of people living on our sidewalks, but also fight opportunities to bring people indoors. This potential Homekey project site will not only help our city make progress towards meeting this agreement under Judge Carter and sheltering our own communities unhoused, but get us closer to ensuring that public spaces are clean and accessible to all residents. So I am asking all of you today, everyone who's here, and I'm asking you to share this presentation that will be available with all the residents and all your friends and neighbors, because I'm asking everyone here today to work with me. I'm asking the advocates who fight for our unhoused every day to work with my office to get as many people off the streets as possible. And I'm asking the residents and business owners who have concerns over this project to work with and put your trust in me to working towards concrete solutions. I truly believe that when we engage and understand community concerns rather than avoid them, we're going to end up with a better project. And I know that we can do it here. So at this time, I'd like to throw it over to Meg Barkley, our homeless coordinator, to give a little more explanation over the Homekey.
Thanks, Councilman. I don't have a presentation, so I'll just, but the Homekey program, as some of you may be aware, is actually the Homekey program was actually an initiative established by the state as a follow-on to Project Homekey. The idea being the state has actually set aside $550 million from its allocation from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to and put out this notice of funding availability, or NOFA, to cities around and other eligible entities, including housing authorities, all over the state, to apply for funding to purchase hotels or other properties that could be used as interim housing, permanent housing, housing options for people experiencing homelessness. With the understanding that this is it is also a response to coronavirus, in that people experiencing homelessness on the street are more vulnerable to much more extreme symptoms and sickness as a result of contracting the coronavirus. It is a strategy to reduce the load or the impact on our local hospitals. And it also keeps people safe inside, where they can remain isolated and also not spread the virus if they were to contract it. So the long-term situation being that basically what the city has done in cooperation with the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles, or HACLA, we've partnered with HACLA. HACLA has actually applied for 16 total sites within the city of LA, 11 of which were planned to be maintained controlled by the city. They would be purchasing them on behalf of the city, and five of which would be, HACLA would be purchasing them on behalf of themselves. And we've actually at this point been notified of reservations for, I believe it's 14 of those 16 properties. One of the properties that was on our list has turned out to not end up being feasible, and we're not moving forward with that application. But we are hopeful that the other one, that 15th property, we may even see an award from the state for that. So the city and HACLA have been very successful in our application for these sites. Total, the 15 sites total 750 units. And if we are awarded Homekey funding for all of those, it would be $119 million coming to the city of Los Angeles in in the next month to establish these units, which is incredible. There's a city match associated with that too. These sites, the city sites, all of the 15 sites are spread across, sorry, I counted the council districts and now I can't find it. They're spread across 11 council districts. 11 of the 15 council districts have Project Homekey sites inside of them, and 4 of those districts are in the San Fernando Valley. So we're really excited about the success of our applications to the state, and it's unheard of to be able to bring this many units online at one time. The city of LA, obviously we are not, cities are just generally not landlords. So our plan with the sites that we're able to purchase through Project Homekey is to turn those sites over, to transfer ownership to qualified owner operators who will be selected through a request for proposals process that my office is actually undertaking right now. We have released an RFP a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, with the sites that we would be providing and making available through Project Homekey. And we would be looking for owner operators who can assume ownership of the sites and also operate them as interim housing for a period of at least 3 years and a maximum of 5 years. And that's we call that the initial interim housing period. After that point in time, we ask that these owner operators have a plan and commit to converting the sites to permanent housing. That may be permanent supportive housing, it may be affordable housing, but over that period of time, the selected owner operators would develop a plan for that conversion, so the sites would become permanent units. But in the meantime, what we need right now is more interim units, and it's fantastic that we actually have this resource to be able to ultimately convert to permanent housing, which is the ultimate goal. That's what really is going to solve people's homelessness. And as I'm sure you all know, the city of LA has made unprecedented investments in permanent housing, especially through Proposition HHH. And those units are, many of them that have commitments now are under construction, but construction takes time. And so this is an amazing resource to have in this period of time between when we've awarded the funds, Prop HHH funds, as those funds are being spent to construct units, we can have interim resources to house people while those units are being constructed, and we can have that resource available to permanently house people, and then ultimately convert these sites to permanent housing, so that they become a part of they become a part of the neighborhood. They become neighbors as opposed to an interim housing facility. So that is where we are with Project Homekey now. The RFP is underway. So I have to be careful if I don't know if there's service providers on here. I can't answer a lot of questions about the RFP that I would have to then make available through our, in order to be very fair and make sure all the information is available to everybody. So I'm going to be very careful about answering specific questions about the RFP. I can talk about the process, and I can talk about what the provider requirements will be as according to how the RFP is designed, though. And that's underway, and we expect to announce the results of that in the next couple of weeks with recommendations for council approval for the service providers for each of the Project Homekey sites.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you, Meg. I appreciate you being here. I won't put you in the position where you have to answer any questions that you're not comfortable with. I will try to actually do them all myself, but please feel free to jump in if I'm not explaining something exactly correctly. So these are some of the questions that we received from the community over the last 4 or 5 days. We've compiled the ones that have been most asked. We're going to be releasing tomorrow a FAQ sheet with all the information that we spoke about today, the answers to these questions. And if your question isn't, we got such an overabundance of questions regarding this project. If your question isn't answered by me today, we will, someone will either call you or email you back with the answers, the specific answer. We will find that answer and we'll make sure that we get it back to you. So let's just go over like operations first, because the first question was, will there be any rules or criteria for staying at this site, and how will they be enforced? So yes, there will be some requirements such as a curfew and no substances allowed on site. I'm obviously, any of the concerns that our community shares with me, I'm going to share with whatever service provider is selected to run this site. Are there going to be anything else, Meg? Just feel free to jump in. Okay. So are there going to be any rules regarding the consumption of alcohol outside the building? So I think for those of you who know me and have heard me speak, know that public safety has always been my #1 priority. Alcohol cannot be consumed on the premises, and we already have open container laws prohibiting the possession and consumption of open containers of alcohol in public places. Will these units be interim or permanent or both? I addressed this when I spoke earlier. So they're interim for the first couple of years, and then it converts into some form of permanent or affordable housing after that. Let's see. Next question is, how soon will the Travelodge site be available for people to move in? So to comply with the agreement with Judge Carter, that would actually, it's on a really quick timeline. So Meg, if I'm not wrong, the facility must be ready before April 2021.
Actually, our deadline under the state is even faster. So in order, because of the, in order to meet the requirements of the coronavirus relief funding, which we actually have to, the state is putting a deadline on us to close all of the purchase agreements, to close escrow on all of the sites in November. And then the sites need to be at least 50% occupied within 90 days of purchase. So they would be, it'd be a little bit before the April 16th date that's in the agreement with the county as a part of the Alliance lawsuit. But we're actually being driven by the money on this one.
Got it. So either way, a very, very fast timeline.
April, but in that neighborhood. And 50%
Gotcha.
occupancy is the first milestone for occupancy.
Got it. So the next question is, will there be, will this project be a substance-free housing? That answer is yes. Who will, let's go into security. Who will provide security? Service provider will actually contract with a private security, and there will be 24/7 on-site security. Can LAPD be required to post weekly crime stats and surrounding this area for the first year? Absolutely. And my public safety deputy will be in constant contact with LAPD to monitor what is happening at the site so we can keep the community apprised. I think some of the business owners there know that we put all of our discretionary funding into LAPD to make sure that we get as many patrols on our streets as possible to provide overtime for Devonshire and Topanga Street. Devonshire has been one of my designated areas where we have additional patrols throughout the day. But all that information we will make available. See, what type of support staff will be on site and what kinds of services will be provided? Caseworkers, Meg, if I'm not wrong, will be on site 24/7.
There will definitely be provider staff on site 24/7. Case management, more specialized services will probably be provided during daytime and early evening hours.
Okay.
While clients are expected to be asleep, there wouldn't be those specialized services on site, but there would still be site that specialize in operating shelters and resolving conflicts and other types of issues related to more behavioral and rule following. All of those are the staff that will be on site overnight. And
mental health and substance abuse counselors and programs will be available.
Yes. If not on site, the selected owner operator will have been required to demonstrate how they were partnering with getting access to those services off site or coming on site. And we've also got a commitment from the County of Los Angeles to provide to actually bring in workers from the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Health Services, and the substance abuse programs onto all of the sites that we're establishing pursuant to this agreement that's part of the Judge Carter lawsuit. And so that we will have those county services coming to all of the sites that are being established, including Project Homekey.
Okay. So do those staying here have to agree to accept drug or mental health services? If I'm not mistaken, the services will be provided, but we cannot require someone. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's right. It has to be a choice of the client. And from what I understand, the longer people maintain or stay inside these facilities, the more open they become to those services, whereas it's more difficult. They may be less open to those services when they're dealing with more primary kind of life safety issues out on the street.
So that we have a better rate of people actually enrolling in these programs or accepting. So next question is, who can stay at this facility? The priority population is still our most, it's 55. Yeah, I know it's the people who live in our community, right? It's focused on them. And then we move to possibly like seniors.
Mm-hmm. So even all of the target population would be from CD12 initially, is the way these things typically work. But the target population would be from CD12. The target population for these beds is people who live near freeways, people who are 65 or older, or people who are otherwise vulnerable to COVID-19. And so those are not all three, but people who meet at least one of those criteria.
Like, one of the frustrations that we have in, all of our different outreach programs, really the only tool in our sort of box right now is repetition. Hoping that someone accepts services on the 105th time we visit them instead of the 104th time. But with Project Homekey, we saw a higher rate of sort of acceptance of people accepting services, correct? Because it's not a congregate living situation. It's a sort of private safety where they can have their, I guess, their possessions safely, where they feel it's in a safe area. Is that correct?
Yeah, so all of the, and including these sites, they lower, we talk about barriers to entry, reasons people have for not accepting shelter, including not being able to bring in extra or extra belongings that they may have, or not being able to bring in their pet, or not being able to stay with their partner. And sites like these sort of take away those reasons and provide, or we're able to accommodate what people need in order to feel safe and to be able to feel comfortable accepting an offer of shelter.
Got it. Next question is, how is this project being funded? I believe we're receiving a federal grant. This is does not it's not the city budget, right? There's no money from it's part of the city grant.
Yeah, so this is the federal coronavirus relief funding from the state's allocation.
Right, to the state.
Allocation. Exactly, that's what we're using to purchase. And then there are special homeless grant funding that's actually being provided in response to COVID-19 that we are allocating to do any of the life safety upgrades, the ADA, Americans with Disability Act upgrades that are needed to come into compliance with the state requirements, and also to pay for the services that are going to be, for the service providers to be operating the sites. Okay.
Next question is if we're buying or leasing the motel. So the city would actually be purchasing this hotel. Let's see, some other questions. Is this instead of or in addition to the Topanga Apartments project? This project is completely different from the proposed Topanga project in Chatsworth, the one that's being proposed at Topanga and Devonshire. I have always strongly opposed that site. I've never felt that fit in the sort of scale. But just to give people an example, that site at Devonshire Topanga is 10,000 square feet. And they originally proposed a 6-story, 72-unit building there that I just completely felt was out of scale with our community. The Travelodge site is 33,000 square feet. And because of different state laws and being located across transit, a much larger project can be built here. And so, they're different projects. One's funded through HHH, and this is a totally different program. They don't have anything to do with one another. This site has 72 rooms. What other projects are you working on to address homelessness in C12? We're always exploring other possible locations and sites as, things come to fruition. I obviously, anytime we locate something or something gets, because things are being moved so quickly, I try to reach out to the community as quickly as possible to make sure that you have as much input as possible on whatever proposed project. How do we know people will go when they did not take advantage of Project Homekey during COVID-19? So as Meg was saying, actually Project Homekey was actually hugely popular, right? I mean, the demand way outweighed the supply, am I correct?
Yeah, there's an interest list that's thousands of people long in excess of the rooms that are available right now with Project Homekey.
Got it.
So, and I would say that The other thing that I would keep in mind also is that we didn't have a Project Homekey site in CD12. And one thing that's really important to remember about, that helps me to remember about people experiencing homelessness, is that likely people are choosing, they can kind of choose lots of places to be unsheltered. Like they're trying to find the best place. And lots of times they want to stay close to where they were when they were housed. And so people don't want to leave their neighborhood. It's their neighborhood. They think of it as their neighborhood where they are and sheltered now. They may have grown up there. They may have gone to high school there. They may have had a job there. Whatever it was that led to them being homeless, they were housed somewhere before that happened. And a lot of times they're choosing to stay in the place that they know. And so having these resources where people are and where they think of as their community will also be an incentive to accept that offer of shelter.
Next question is, why can't the city purchase the Motel 6 near Roscoe and the 405 for this project? I think many of you, were at a meeting when I talked about this being a potential site that was being looked at, but because properties near transit hubs, so that's near the 405 freeway, those are the ones most desirable by developer because they get the current state laws give them added bonuses and require less parking so they can build more rooms. That site, unfortunately, before Project Homekey was available, that site was purchased by a private developer. So we see, what is interim housing? So interim housing, well, why don't you explain a little bit about what interim housing is?
Sure. Interim housing is a lot of what we, you probably would have heard referred to as shelter, emergency shelter, but there's lots of different types and different models of service provision and levels of service. But basically it's housing that is not meant to be a permanent placement. It's more of and in fact, there is a time limit on people's participation in interim housing programs that has to be renewed if they need more time. And that is so that people can remain, because if it's indefinite, that can be seen as permanent housing, even if it's not, housing with the door and a unit with a door, for example, which these are. And so it's important that we don't then, if people sort of could lose their status as somebody who's experiencing homelessness and therefore become ineligible for other resources like other permanent housing, we don't want to see that. And that would be another reason why people may not take up an offer of shelter, if they could then lose their place in line, as it were, for a housing unit or something that they're currently eligible for. And so these will have, the most important thing about interim housing is that there's a limit on length of stay that has to be renewed. Most often it's every 90 days.
And the final question was that we're addressing tonight is, what can the community members and businesses do to support residents who might be living here? There will obviously be many opportunities to provide support of this project and to the residents. However, right now, what I really need from everyone is our community is to be sharing accurate information about this project. I am asking our community to come together and work together, stop the screaming, stop the yelling, and work together towards providing a real solution, because what we've been doing and what we've continued to be doing is it's just not working. Our situation is not getting better. And, I believe that we, in order to move forward, we need to be able to hopefully reach certain goals that, in the future, someone might allow us to enforce certain laws, to make sure that we get as many people housed as possible. And, I support this project. I want to make that clear, because I think we need to take control of this site and build the best project possible for Council District 12, and to really start addressing issues. I think those of you who know me know that that I understand the mental illness crisis that's going on, that we need to. I mean, I can't sit around and just hope that Sacramento starts providing more funding for mental illness. I have to try something different. That doesn't mean I don't have to keep going out there and advocating with our state legislators to provide what was really promised us decades ago about local mental health solutions that we have never seen a dime of. And that's something that I continue to understand is part of the issue. Drug addiction, I know that's part of the problem that we need to address. But this project, I truly believe that we need to take side control. And I was encouraged by the rate of people under the Project Homekey of people accepting services. And, I think, I truly believe that it will get better. And this will be a project, if we work together, will be a huge benefit for this community. So Meg, thank you for joining us today. For those of you listening, know that my office has not been closed since the COVID-19 started. We are open to answer your questions. We will provide as much as possible to the community via our website or our Facebook page over the next couple of days. But know that, I want to hear from you. I need to hear from you. And so please reach out to me and share your concerns, talk to me, and let's have a discussion about how we solve this crisis together. So thank you everybody for joining us, and I will hopefully see you all soon.